They mocked me for years, called me a failure, laughed at my little tech job, and handed everything to my perfect sister. But what they didn't know, I was secretly building an empire. And the night I exposed it all was their downfall. Want to know how it ended? Keep watching. I never planned to be the center of attention at my sister's engagement party. In fact, I'd spent most of my life trying to stay invisible, at least to my family.
It was easier that way.
Let them think what they wanted. Let them believe I was just the odd one out, the socially awkward little sister with a quirky freelance tech gig. That narrative suited them. It made their lives neater, their pride in Betrayal stronger. I had learned long ago not to disrupt that illusion. The night of the party, I arrived late on purpose. I wanted to slip in quietly and avoid the usual wave of judgment. The glass orchid banquet hall was glowing with soft gold lights, flowers dripping from crystal chandeliers, and a string quartet playing something expensive and forgettable. Betrayal liked things that looked impressive, even if they lacked depth. I stepped inside, smoothing my simple gray dress, one I chose precisely because it wouldn't stand out. It didn't take long for my presence to be noticed. "There you are." My mother's voice rang out with a kind of passive-aggressive cheerfulness only she could master. "We were starting to think you weren't coming." She pulled me into a quick hug, her eyes scanning me up and down. "You look comfortable," she said, which was her way of saying I looked cheap. "Thanks, Mom. It's good to see you, too." I smiled politely, taking a glass of champagne from a passing tray. My father appeared a moment later, patting me awkwardly on the back like I was an acquaintance he didn't really know. "Still doing the computer thing?" he asked, avoiding eye contact. "Yep," I replied, sipping my drink. Still doing the computer thing. The truth was I had stopped trying to explain my work to them years ago. They never listened. Every time I tried to talk about the company I built, or Iron Strategies, they either changed the subject or made uncomfortable jokes about me living in a basement surrounded by wires. So I let them believe what they wanted. That I fixed laptops for cash. That I had no ambition. That Betrayal was the real success story. Speak of the devil. "There she is," Betrayal said as she approached, a glass of rose in her hand and a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. "My favorite little hacker. I'm honestly shocked you came. Did someone lend you a dress?" "Hello to you too," I said, calm and even. I had mastered that tone around her. She leaned in closer, voice sweetened with poison. "Just don't start talking about firewalls and code or whatever. We wouldn't want you boring the guests." Behind her, Daniel, the fiancé, appeared, draped in a designer suit and arrogance. "Hey, Lena. Heard you're in cyber something. Maybe you can help set up antivirus in our new apartment." He chuckled, like he'd just told the world's funniest joke. I smiled faintly.
"Sure.
"And maybe I can help you find the holes in your own company servers, too." He blinked, but Betrayal didn't catch the tone. She was already scanning the room for more important people. My family had always made it clear where their loyalties lay. Betrayal was the golden child. The straight-A student turned marketing queen. She had the looks, the charm, the connections. I was the weirdo who took apart computers in high school and missed prom to study coding. They barely noticed me at the dinner table unless they needed something. Like that time I loaned them $80,000 for Betrayal's luxury apartment. Money I never saw again. But that was old news. Just like me in their eyes. I made my way to the back of the room, hoping to find a quiet corner. I didn't want to ruin the night, not yet. But fate had other plans. A ripple passed through the room. Heads turned. Murmurs followed. That's when Walter Greaves walked in, the CEO of Titan Tectal, silver-haired, commanding. He didn't belong at engagement parties. He belonged in boardrooms and financial headlines. Betrayal nearly tripped over herself to greet him. "Mr. Greaves, I didn't know you'd be here," Daniel said. But he walked right past her, straight toward me. "Miss Carter," he said warmly, extending his hand. "What a surprise. I didn't expect to see you here tonight." I heard the clink of a wine glass dropping somewhere nearby. Brielle's expression froze. Mr. Greaves, I replied smoothly, shaking his hand. Likewise. I didn't realize Titan Tech executives made a habit of attending engagement parties. He smiled. Only when we're hoping to finalize a $1.2 billion deal. Though I must say, I had no idea this was a family affair. The silence that followed was thick, almost tangible. My parents stared. Daniel's jaw twitched. Brielle blinked like she was waiting for someone to explain the punchline. Wait, Walter said slowly, glancing between us. You and Brielle sisters? I nodded.
Yes.
That's my sister. This is her party. You never mentioned that, Lena, he said with a grin. But I suppose you're not the bragging type. Brielle looked like she'd seen a ghost. You know each other? Walter's brows lifted. Know her? We've been trying to get on her calendar for months. Orion Strategies is the only firm capable of untangling our recent data breach crisis. And Lena here runs the whole show. The room erupted in whispers. My mother looked like she was about to faint. My father's face drained of color. Orion. Brielle whispered. That's your company? I nodded again, sipping my champagne. Has been for 5 years. Daniel stepped back, like I'd just slapped him. No way. That's not possible. I assure you it is, I replied. Walter chuckled. She's brilliant, really. A quiet storm. Now, if you'll excuse me, Lena, I won't keep you from your family moment. But do give us a few minutes after the event. We're quite eager to move forward. He gave me a respectful nod and walked away, leaving the room in stunned silence. And me? I stood there, surrounded by the people who had spent years laughing behind my back, pretending I didn't matter. They finally knew who I really was. And that was just the beginning. The silence that followed Walter's words could have swallowed the entire banquet hall. I stood there, still holding my champagne glass, watching my family's world tilt sideways. They had mocked me for years, treated me like some harmless disappointment. But now, everything had shifted, and I could feel it in the way people stared. Brielle's face had gone pale, her lips slightly parted as if she couldn't decide whether to scream or cry. Daniel looked stunned, blinking slowly like he'd just realized he'd made a terrible mistake. My parents, well, they looked like strangers. Their eyes filled with disbelief, then discomfort, then something close to fear. I didn't move. I didn't need to. The truth had already done more damage than I ever could. What the hell is going on? Brielle asked, stepping toward me. Are you seriously telling me you're the CEO of Orion? I'm not telling you, I said. Walter just did. No, this can't be real. You said you were freelancing. You said you were struggling. No, I corrected her calmly. You assumed I was struggling. I just never corrected you. My mother finally found her voice. Lena, sweetheart, why would you hide something so important from us? I turned to her slowly. Because you never asked. You never wanted to know. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you brushed it aside, changed the subject, or compared me to Brielle. That's not true, she insisted, her voice shaking. Isn't it? I tilted my head. Let's talk about the $80,000 you borrowed from me for Brielle's apartment. The one you never paid back. You said she needed it more than I did because she had real responsibilities. That was your exact phrase. My father stepped forward, face red. We're not here to talk about money. Of course not, I said, cutting him off. Money only matters when Brielle needs it, right? Brielle tried again. Lena, you can't do this. You're going to embarrass the whole family. Embarrass? I echoed, letting out a soft laugh. That's rich coming from the woman who just spent 15 minutes mocking me in front of your guests. Daniel finally spoke. Is this why you've been distant all these years? Sitting in the corner, quietly judging everyone. No, I said, locking eyes with him. I've been distant because I was busy building a company. While you were all too busy playing favorites and polishing your reputations, I was writing code, hiring teams, surviving investors, landing government contracts, and protecting corporations like yours from complete collapse. He looked away, jaw clenched. I glanced at Walter across the room. He was deep in conversation with another executive, but gave me a small nod of acknowledgement. I knew what it meant. We were moving forward with the merger, and I was holding all the power now. "I think we should talk somewhere private," I said quietly, directing the words to my parents. We moved into a side lounge just off the main hall. The door closed behind us, shutting out the music and the whispers. The air inside felt heavier, thicker with unspoken words and long-buried bitterness. Brielle was the first to snap. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "Do you know what you've done? You made me look like an idiot in front of everyone. You humiliated me." "No," I replied. "You did that to yourself." Her hands clenched into fists. "You couldn't let me have this one night. This one thing." This one thing. I stepped closer. "You've had everything, Brielle. Every ounce of praise, every family dollar, every ounce of support. And what did I get? Lectures about being realistic. Condescending pats on the head. Mom bragging about your minor awards while ignoring my company's national contracts." My mother spoke up, her voice shaking. "We were just trying to guide you, Lena. The tech world, it's harsh. We didn't want to see you fail." "No," I said. "You just didn't believe I could succeed." My father crossed his arms. "Well, fine. You've proved your point.
You've built something.
But we're still family. That has to mean something." "Does it?" I asked. "Because family didn't mean much when you all dismissed me for years. Family didn't stop you from choosing her over and over again." "You're bitter," Brielle snapped. "This is about jealousy. You're still the weird little sister who couldn't handle being second best." I stared at her, expression calm. "Second best? Brielle, you're under federal audit. You falsified marketing reports to inflate Titan's growth numbers. You thought no one would notice, but my team did during the first phase of the merger review." Brielle froze. "That's not true." I pulled my phone from my clutch and opened a file. "I've got documents, time-stamped reports, email backups. I've already shared them with Titan's legal department. You're about to be removed from your position." Daniel stepped back again, his face a storm of betrayal and disbelief. My mother gasped. "Lena, how could you protect my company?" I cut in. "I'm not going to risk Orion's reputation for Brielle's lies. I don't owe her that. I don't owe any of you anything." Brielle's voice cracked. "You've destroyed me." "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself. I just turned on the lights so everyone could see." A knock came at the door. It was Jared, my assistant, peeking in. "Miss Carter, Walter's asking if you're ready. They'd like to speak with you in private before the media announcement." I nodded. "Tell him I'll be there in 5. Jared glanced at the family behind me and gave me a brief look that said, "Everything, you okay?" I nodded once. He closed the door, leaving me alone again with my family, if I could still call them that. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," I said finally. "But I won't protect your lies anymore. You all made me feel small for so long. You pushed me to the edge and told me to stay quiet. Now you're finally hearing my voice, and it's too loud for your comfort." I turned to the door. My father's voice came behind me. "Lena, please. Let's figure this out. Don't destroy your sister's future over a grudge." I looked over my shoulder. "You're still not listening, Dad. This isn't a grudge. This is reality catching up. And Brielle's future is now in the hands of the company she laughed at." Then I walked out, letting the door shut behind me with a soft but final click. The mask was off, and I wasn't the quiet little sister anymore. After I walked out of that lounge, something inside me settled. Not in a peaceful way, but like a blade finally finding its sheath. The years I had swallowed my pride, kept my distance, and bit my tongue were over. I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. That night at the engagement party had shown everyone exactly who I was. Not the forgotten younger daughter. Not the tech nerd joke. I was Lena Carter, CEO of Orion Strategies and the woman who held the fate of Titan Tech in her hands. The days that followed were a storm of chaos, Just not for me. I stayed focused, calm, and distant. I had a merger to finalize and a reputation to uphold. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed endlessly. Missed calls, voicemails, texts from numbers I hadn't saved in years. Mom, Lena, can we please talk as a family? This has gone too far. Dad, your sister is devastated. At least hear us out before the board meeting. Brielle, you think you've won, but you don't know what you're doing. Daniel, call me. We need to talk about what happens next. I didn't answer any of them. I forwarded the voicemails to Jared with a simple note. If any of this becomes a PR problem, let legal know. Each morning, I arrived at Orion's headquarters, the sleek glass building downtown that no one in my family even knew I owned. Funny, isn't it? For years, they thought I was working out of cafes and borrowed corners. They never realized I'd built an empire right under their noses. That my name was on the top floor. That I signed the paychecks of people they saw quoted in national tech journals. 3 days before the board meeting, Brielle showed up at my office. Jared buzzed me, his voice unusually tight. She's here again. No appointment. I sighed. Let her in. She entered wearing sunglasses and a trench coat like she was dodging paparazzi. But she didn't look glamorous. She looked tired. Her face was pale, her posture unsure. I almost didn't recognize her. You're not returning my calls, she said, standing stiff near the door. I didn't think there was anything left to say. I replied, motioning for her to sit. She didn't. Lena, please. I get it. You're angry. You have every right to be. But you can't just ruin everything I've worked for. I looked at her for a long moment. Brielle, you didn't build anything. You played a role in a system that protected you. You lied on reports, misled investors, and rode on our family name. That's not work. That's survival through deceit. I was trying to keep up, she snapped. You don't know what it's like, having everyone expect you to shine all the time. You had the luxury of disappearing. I didn't. I raised an eyebrow. You think being ignored is a luxury? She flinched. I'm sorry, she said finally. I mean it. I was awful to you. We all were. But if you go through with this, I lose everything. Please, let me resign quietly. Don't make it public. I studied her, weighing every word. You want quiet? I asked. Where was your quiet when you mocked me in front of guests? When you called me a joke to investors you didn't know were already in talks with me? Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't know. I didn't understand. No, you didn't care to understand. You just assumed I was beneath you. I stood and walked around the desk, standing in front of her. Brielle, I don't want revenge. I want justice. You abused your role. You lied to your company. You laughed at mine. This merger isn't personal, but your consequences are. For the first time in her life, Brielle had no comeback. I'll talk to legal about the terms of your exit, I said finally. But the board will see everything. You'll never hold another executive title in tech again. You might not even get a foot in the door. She wiped her face, barely able to breathe. Lena, please. I softened slightly. Not much. Just enough to remember we were once little girls building blanket forts in the same bedroom. I won't destroy you, I said, but I won't protect you either. She left without another word. The day of the board meeting arrived with the weight of a storm. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in my office, overlooking downtown Austin. The city was buzzing, unaware that one of its largest tech firms was about to shift hands. Jared knocked and stepped inside. Walter and the Titan board are in conference room A. All media is locked out. You're good to go. Thank you, I said, straightening my tailored white suit. You look like a general walking into war, he added, half smiling. I turned to him. It's not war. It's structure. He nodded. You've got this. When I walked into the boardroom, all eyes turned to me. Walter stood, offering his hand. Ms. Carter, thank you for joining us. I took my place at the head of the table, opening the leather binder in front of me. Let's begin. For the next hour, I outlined Orion's full strategy, department realignments, infrastructure changes, digital security upgrades, and most importantly, a full audit of executive positions. I didn't name Brielle during the presentation, but the room knew. They had seen the files. Her name would be handled in closed session after the vote. The most powerful moment came near the end. This merger isn't about punishing the past, I said clearly. It's about protecting the future. Titan has potential, but not without accountability. This company will be restructured from the inside out. No more nepotism. No more titles without merit. Going forward, Titan will answer to results, not surnames. Through the glass walls, I could see them, my parents, Brielle, and Daniel, watching from the waiting area. Daniel looked stunned, his confidence shattered. My mother clutched her purse like it was keeping her upright. My father just looked old and suddenly very small. Brielle met my eyes for a second, then looked away. When the vote was cast, it was unanimous. Titan Tech now belonged, in majority, to Orion Strategies. I stood, gathered my binder, and nodded to Walter. "Well done," he said under his breath. "You just saved us." I smiled faintly, but not without consequences. As I walked out, I passed my family without a word, not because I had nothing to say, but because they were finally listening, and I had already said enough. They didn't try to stop me as I walked past.
Not this time.
I think they knew better. Or maybe they just didn't have the words. I could feel their eyes on me, especially Brielle's, filled with something between regret and disbelief. But I didn't turn around. I had turned around for them too many times before, hoping for some sign of approval. A nod, a smile, anything to say I mattered. Not anymore. Back in my office, I loosened my jacket and sat behind my desk. Jared entered a moment later with a knowing look. The board meeting went exactly as predicted. Media embargo holds until morning. You want me to draft the internal announcement. Already done, I said, sliding over a printed memo. Circulate it to legal and HR, then let PR handle the external language. He nodded. And your family? I let out a quiet sigh. Let them process it however they need to. I'm not chasing their understanding. That night, I stayed late at Orion HQ. I wasn't avoiding anything. I just liked the silence of the top floor when the rest of the city slept. The windows stretched high and wide, giving me a full view of Austin's glowing skyline. In the quiet, I pulled open the drawer of my desk and took out a small, weathered lockbox. Inside was the last letter my aunt ever wrote me. She was the only family member who had believed in me from the beginning. I unfolded the note slowly. Her neat handwriting still made me smile. The best revenge is becoming impossible to ignore. It wasn't about revenge in the bitter sense. It was about proving I had never needed their validation, that I had carved my own path, even when everyone told me to quit, to get a real job, to stop dreaming. The next morning, the news exploded. Orion Strategies acquires majority control of Titan Tech. Walter Greaves retains CEO role. Carter's sister removed amid internal audit. Unknown genius behind Orion finally steps into the spotlight. I didn't look for the headlines. I didn't have to. People sent them to me. Emails.
Calls.
Journalists wanted interviews. Venture capitalists wanted meetings. CEOs suddenly wanted to collaborate. And of course, so did my family. That same morning, as I was reviewing the new org chart with Jared, he stepped into my office with a raised brow. They're here again. I already knew who he meant. Let them in, I said, standing. Carol, Thomas, and Brielle walked in like strangers who'd taken a wrong turn. Brielle looked different now. No lipstick. Her hair pulled back. Humility doesn't suit everyone, but at least she was trying. My mother, on the other hand, looked like she hadn't slept. My father's usual confidence was absent, replaced by hesitation. Lena, my mother started, we just want to talk. I crossed my arms. Now you want to talk? We were wrong, she said quietly. So wrong about everything. About you. My father cleared his throat. You've built something extraordinary. We didn't see it. We should have. Brielle stayed silent until I looked directly at her. You were right about me, she said softly. About all of it. I don't even know who I am without the titles and the attention. You worked for what you have. I just wore the costume. I didn't feel anger. Not anymore. Just distance. A gap too wide to close with apologies. I needed your belief when I had nothing, I said. When I was just a girl in a hoodie writing code in a dark apartment. When I drained my savings to help you buy an apartment, Mom said you needed it more. When I missed family dinners because I was pulling 18-hour days, you thought I was just isolating myself. You're right, my mother whispered. We failed you. I walked over to my desk and picked up a photo. It was from years ago. A family picture. Betrayal in the center, glowing. Me at the edge, half cut out. I set it on the table between us. You built a story where I didn't fit, I said. And now you want me to edit the ending. My father stepped forward. Maybe we can write a new chapter instead. I looked at him, then at Betrayal, whose eyes brimmed with tears. It's not that simple. What can we do? Betrayal asked. I'll do anything. I held her gaze. Then earn it. You want redemption? Start over. Learn from the bottom up. If you ever want to be in this industry again, you'll need to rebuild everything you once took for granted. She nodded. I will. I turned to my parents. And you? You'll have to accept that I'm not the quiet disappointment anymore. I'm not asking for your pride.
Just your honesty.
That's all I ever wanted. My mother wiped her eyes. We can't go back, but we can try to go forward. I'm not making promises, I said. But the contracts will be sent today. Read them carefully. No more favors. No more assumptions. They stood there, unsure of what else to say. You can see yourselves out, I added gently. I have a company to run. As they walked out, I watched them disappear into the hallway, smaller now, humbled. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was freedom. That evening, I stood alone again in my penthouse, city lights dancing below. I poured myself a glass of red wine and stepped onto the balcony, letting the wind move through my hair. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken either. I was whole. I thought of the girl I used to be, sitting at a secondhand desk in a tiny apartment, eating microwave noodles and debugging lines of code until sunrise. She'd been so alone. But she'd never quit, never gave in to their doubts. Now, the companies that once dismissed me wanted my approval. The family that once ignored me finally saw me. But none of it mattered as much as knowing I had done it without them. Not for revenge. For myself. As I sipped my wine, Jared's voice echoed in my head from earlier that week. You look like a general walking into war. He was wrong. I hadn't gone to war. I'd simply taken back what was mine. And that was just the beginning.